Well, welcome to everyone here joining us for our Michigan Virtual Business Luncheon today. We're going to give it a few more moments for everyone to be able to join us, and then we're going to get started. Hope everybody's feeling okay. I'm not sure what the weather is like in the regions where you are dialing in from, but it's getting colder here in Chicago, unfortunately. All right, so I think we can get this started. So welcome and to our virtual business luncheon today. I'm very happy that we have Matthias Stegmüller here, General Manager of the company Hugo Benzing, based out of Wixom, Michigan. Before we start the usual procedure, just a few housekeeping things in the background. There's our amazing events team. Franziska and Kim are there, and there is one person that I have the pleasure to introduce you today to, which is Jules. Jules Voss, our Manager Membership Engagement, and Jules is based in Michigan, taking care of all of your questions regarding to membership. Jules, say hi to the crowd.
Hi everyone, very happy to be here today. I'm the manager for membership engagement, responsible for our members, and yeah, if you are ever interested in becoming a member, I am the person to speak to. Previously, I worked at the Chamber in Canada for the last 3 years, and yeah, I'm here based out of Detroit, and we have our office still in Farmington Hills as well. So very glad to be here.
Awesome, thank you, Jules, and glad to have you on board. Welcome to the team. As always, I'm sorry I was too fast with those slides here. As always, the audience and the participants, you're going to be muted throughout the presentation. If you have a question, then please feel free to raise your hand or type your question into the question box, and we're going to put you through then at the end of the presentation. One more thing before we dive into the topic, and I can't wait to hear Matthias' story here. We just opened our German American Business Outlook survey. You will find the link to that survey pretty soon posted in the chat function there. This is our annual survey throughout the entire United States, and we want to know what the expectations in terms of business development or business climate of German companies are regarding doing business here in the United States. I would be very happy if all of you could give us their input there, because that is the information we need to convince those who make decisions to make the right decisions and informed decisions about business climate here in the United States, but also support from Germany. Again, you will find that link in the chat function. Our team in the background is going to take care of that. And without further ado, Matthias, I would love to hand it over to you right now. We chatted yesterday and a few days ago already, and you've got an amazing story to tell about your lessons learned when breaking into the automotive industry here. Matthias, the screen is yours.
Well, thank you for the nice introduction, Mario. I'm going to open this. And welcome everybody, and thank you for your interest in this business luncheon. I'm opening my screen right now, and your interest in that topic. I will hope that this will be very helpful for you, and I'd like to share my experiences that we had. Moment. There you go. Quick to my topic for the business luncheon today is lessons learned successfully breaking into the US as a market. Sorry. So let me introduce you really quick myself. My name is Matthias Stegmüller. I've been in the US now. This is going to be at the end of this year 26 years. So I've worked for different companies in different functions for large corporations, and since 4.5 years large corporations like Bosch, Mahle, etc. And since the last 4.5 years, so almost 5 now, I'm with Hugo Benzing as a startup. And I'm glad to be here today. And again, thank you for participating, and I hope this will be good for you. The agenda will be first, I'm going to introduce Hugo Benzing as a company, our location here, and then what are the drivers to start up a location abroad, consideration to decide on a location, and the key factors that are often underestimated, and that's going to be the meat of the presentation, I would say, since I would like to share our experiences, and by no means this is supposed to be a very pragmatic, call it a pragmatic sharing of experiences rather than a high 30,000 level strategic approach to entering this market. Quickly about Hugo Benzing. Hugo Benzing is a family-owned business. We're about 800 and some people, depending before or after COVID. We were founded by Hugo Benzing in 1933. So you can tell we're a mid-sized company, medium to small, and we have at this moment 3 locations. Really, you see the headquarters here, showing 3 plants that are really next to each other. And then on the bottom right, it's our plant in USA, in Wixom, Michigan. This is where I'm right now. And we also opened just recently a Chinese representation, which is a sales office. Moving on to our location here. This is the plant here in Wixom, Michigan, in the Detroit metro area. I'm going to talk about this location a bit more later on. We've been here since 5 years. We're about 50 employees, and it's a manufacturing facility that has 40,000 square feet. So nice size, but we prepared it so it's to our company standards. I don't have any pictures from the inside, but we are a ring manufacturing snap ring. I get to the products later on, and we serve globally on a global perspective. We serve all major automotive companies and tier 1 and tier 2 companies. And in the US here at this moment, we have a limited amount of customers that were let's call it takeovers from Germany, relocation of business with ZF and FCA, our first customers, as well as Linamar, and GM and Ford is coming on board in the next months and years. So it's pretty exciting times for us, and we're hoping to expand that portfolio. On a global basis, Hugo Benzing as a company, and I don't want to get too much into detail, but we're forming and shaping wire and metal. You can see there's all kinds of different metal parts on there, from retainings, rings, springs, stampings, fine blank parts, valves, wire forms, etc. We also have a die casting operation in Germany that does aluminum die casting for us for certain products. Last but not least, parking lock systems. I'm going to get into the details of that because it's one of the products we will be producing here soon. And then burst and venting valves for battery packs as an answer to electrification in the market. These are components that help the safety of a battery pack. I don't know how familiar you are, but that's also a growing, new, exciting business. And we're looking forward to also produce that in the future here in the US. Currently, what we're producing here with the staff that we have and the machines that we have brought over and installed, we are producing retaining rings. And I'm a mechanical engineer, so I hope I don't get too much into detail. But the retaining rings here, these go into automatic transmission, 8-speed and 9-speed mostly. And there's about 16 or so rings in a transmission. of different size and shape. These are precision, pre-hardened spring steel parts that we produce here with high cleanliness requirements as well. And our full production volume is 34 million of these rings per year. So that is our main bread and butter business at the moment. We have ventured into wire forms, which core competence is forming of wire for Hugo Benzing per se, but this is a portfolio that we have developed here specifically as a competence in the US. We're quite proud about that because we're producing extremely complex geometries, and we can measure them visually with a very sophisticated system that is a growing segment, and we're looking forward to that. What that is, it goes into mostly in a truck or a Jeep, and it's bolted onto a frame and holds a cable away, typically from the frame, for many moving parts. On the bottom, you see top right bottom is parking lock systems, so they're also called park rod. What it really is when you put your car in park, assuming you don't have electric transmission, this piece down here is actually going into the gears and locking the transmission so the car doesn't roll away. So that is a safety and precision part that's extremely critical, and it's a more complex, as you can see here, part than the snap rings themselves. We have been planning and working with local contractors, which is important to build machines to be able and to be ready to start production here in 2022. So that's a very exciting venture here as well. I have to apologize for this slide. It's not very visible, but what's really important are the colors here. What I'd like to share is whatever you see here, the colors are important. The pink is our staff, meaning qualified higher staff, managers, etc. You have 9 boxes here. I mentioned before we have 50 employees, but the 9 boxes are really covered by only six persons that have to wear many hats. The nature of the beast of a small startup, let's call it. And then down here we have, for example, a lot of packagers that package these rings, and machine operators and setters and so forth. We also have some logistics people there. What I would like to show you here in the screen is that it's a very flat organization at this moment. That's when you start out. You have to wear many hats, or everybody has to wear many hats. Everybody has to be able to take tasks on that maybe are not in the job descriptions, and that's really my philosophy. I tell everybody I don't want to hear it's not my job, and therefore we are all pulling on the same level, and nobody is too good to do whatever is needed to be successful in this business, and that includes myself, of course. Now, getting into what are the typical drivers to start up a location abroad for a small company like us. I mentioned before I worked for Mahle and Bosch, extremely large corporations where you have strategic approaches and staff and in high levels that support or plan such a venture, or it's an acquisition. I've been involved in quite a few of those merchant acquisitions in that process, and then it kind of falls into place. For a small company like us, it's a little different, and that's why I put customers driving localization on top of this list here, because that was really the driver for us. Our customers were pushing us to have a local presence here, and there's a substantial business here in the US, so it did make sense. Of course, that comes with the local presence is allowing you to serve your customers more effectively. And we see a really great effect about that. It's not only because of the time zone difference or the time difference, but also language and mostly the cultural, let's say the cultural, even though it's not that much of a difference, let's say from Germany to the US, but still there are differences, and we can serve our customers much more effectively from here, and we can have easily in-person communication, meaning having meetings here or visit a customer if needed, or if it's strategically making sense. That does help us quite a bit. We've experienced that a lot in the last 5 years to secure additional business and again serve these customers better. We get great feedback from that side, and we're happy about that, and we're confident that that was a good move. As well, we have been relocating production and products. So all the product came from Germany, and there's quite a risk involved in that. I'm not kidding. There was a railroad wagon that fell off the tracks, and we had lost some product, and that's critical for us since we have to supply our customers, and shutting down the customer is not an option. Or even on the sea freight, the world economy can impact the availability of freight containers or ships. Not only that, but also you have bound capital always that's on the ship or somewhere in a customs yard or somewhere in a logistics harbor. Last but not least, I'd like to mention the duties and tariffs that are a little unknown factor. And at the time when we decided to start this location, there was no 232 steel tariffs, but we actually got hit by that. And as a lessons learned going forward, I would pay a lot of attention to that, to be understanding or fully understanding what is really there in regards to tariffs, and what can be the restrictions and the risks. We were lucky. We have been excluded for our raw material that all comes from Europe, but it was a long, hard road to get there, and it takes resources and digging into it, so not to be neglected. So please feel free to ask any questions. In the meantime, this is supposed to my sharing of experiences. I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have in the meantime, or we can do it at the end of the session. And of course, I could talk about each of these topics for a long time, but the time is limited, so we'll keep that for the end of that as well. Next, a consideration to decide on a location. Of course, there's the US is a big country, and Mexico is next to it, as we all know for sure, and that's also a consideration. The infrastructure to actually decide on where to locate yourself it's a difficult question, because there's pros and cons to any location. In our case, our customers' tech centers are all in the Detroit metro area, and so we can get to any customer at this time, at least to the tech centers, within a maximum of 45 minutes. And we also see a lot of benefit through that, because we get engineers visiting us that typically wouldn't go to a supplier, and that helps us as a sales tool as well here. Of course, we're very proud of our facility here, and we use it as a showcase as well, and we have good success. Another consideration, of course, is, but that's harder to how would I say, centralize it, is where do we ship to? Our ship to locations are all across the United States and Canada, so it made sense for us to be here, even though it comes with some Michigan as a location is not the cheapest. I'll get into that in a little bit, but we have substantial advantages. Of course, it also depends on your situation that or the business that you're in or market that you serve. Last but not least, we have here in Michigan, we have or in the Midwest, let's say, we have our suppliers. I mentioned raw material comes from the US, but we have started to also venturing into a local or developing local raw material suppliers. They are typically in the Midwest based on the steel history of this country, but also machine service locations. We were using mostly the identical or same machines than in Germany or Europe. Therefore, most of the service centers are either in the Illinois area or Michigan or on the East Coast, so they're pretty close as well. Very important is for us to, since we are such a small company and we do not have support functions like a tool and die making department, facility, and people here, we need small companies that can supply us with tools in periphery, meaning whatever we need to be making, that we typically in a bigger company you would make yourself. We don't have the resources at this time, so that is great here in our area. Something to consider. We have tool makers all over the place. We have machine builders. We have electricians, etc. In the org chart, I didn't point out that, for example, at this level, we do not have a electrician or a controls person on staff, because it just doesn't make sense to have a person sitting around and then only use them for a day or two in a week, or maybe, or hopefully even less if it's maintenance. So that's a consideration for a small company. And if it's a bigger company that can start out with all these support functions within the organization, it's not such a big factor, but for us, certainly it is. Of course, real estate availability and cost is factoring into that for sure. Again, it depends on the nature. We're in a fairly expensive area, and I get to that a little later. I mean, we got approached from other states, business development organizations that offer extreme strong tax incentives and startup incentives. That has to be weighed. In our case, it was a strategic decision, and I'm happy that it was made as such. I mentioned here airport and connections to headquarters. It does appear a little bit, I would say it's lower on the priority, but we find a great effect of being close to the Detroit metro area, metro airport, sorry, which has direct flights to most any destination in the world. It's good for our support staff that comes from Germany, for customers that have their headquarters in Europe, and quite sometimes we get some visitors that are just passing through to another location and fly into the US through Detroit. It saves a lot of time and also cost internally. I think it's an important consideration compared to, let's say, if we have to go somewhere and take two connecting flights and drive another 6-7 hours. Workforce is, of course, a extremely important factor in building a team, and we have been struggling and learning while we go. In a metro area like this, and I've been working for other companies where we had, let's call remote locations. So I have a comparison to that. Here in Detroit metro area, of course, there's a lot of skilled persons and employees available. There's a large pool size of lesser skilled employees as well available. And I mean, it has to be weighed on what your team is going to look like. If you need a lot of highly skilled staff, which we've experienced in another situation in another company, if you're somewhere out where it's not less desirable, there's you have to give incentives to actually have people move to that location, and that's from our point of view here in the greater Detroit metro area, very good advantage. However, we do have production manufacturing in Michigan, which is not very typical to start that here rather than in a southern state. That is a factor that I would consider to look at very closely, since that is a less available here in the area. We're in the outskirts of Detroit metro area, and hence the cost or the availability of lower paid production personnel is not as desired. However, currently everybody's trying to find employees for production, and has to do with COVID, but we had a challenge here before that happened. I mentioned before incentives and tax programs, Midwest versus the southern states, which are most attractive, and local and regional and other programs. I really encourage that wherever one is planning to move to really do their homework and see what's available and dig into the details, because we have been speaking to several organizations and advisors and consultants, and it always is there's millions of dollars available and programs and incentives, whereas it turns out at the end it depends on the timing on when you start applying for these incentives, and at the end it's not as much as it was hoped for. It's very attractive to go to the southern states because they offer extreme tax incentives if that fits your organization or the goals that you want to do. For in our case, it didn't make sense for the reasons that I mentioned before. Sorry. Now, coming to the meat of the presentation is, so what is it that's often underestimated? And I'd like to tell some stories to these topics on what we've experienced as we go. Customer releases for location change, called PPAPs. That is not to be underestimated. We had to PPAP or release about 100 parts, and the definition of what level it needs to be done is critical to be defined up front. We had to learn that here, and it delayed us quite substantially. That was not only caused by the work to be done, but also by volatility in the currency exchange rate at the time, where it made more sense to keep buying from Germany rather than in US dollars from here. But that cannot be underestimated. It takes a staff and qualified persons to do these approvals and releases, and it's highly technical. It requires a quality team that's standing behind it, or a quality person that has done that before. So we experienced that to be a very interesting learning curve, I would say. But we managed to do so, and we're glad we know how to do that now here locally. And I would caution that. What's not to be underestimated, we found, and we still do that, since we're working on, first of all, relocating. We were a new customer, new supplier to the customer. Therefore, we are treated as a new supplier. Hence, we need onboarding, we need the internal audits, VDA, etc., and the certifications that all these customers require. For the relocation business, it's of course necessary, but also for new acquiring new business here, the customer approvals themselves is extremely time consuming, and it takes the resources. Just to give you an example, we had last year, this year is not so representative, but last year by the middle of the year, we spent already more than 16 full days, that's the full team, with onboarding and audits, and I'm not talking about IATF or ISO audits. That's just customer onboarding efforts. That sounds like, yeah, well, you have to do that anyway. Everybody has to do that. But if you're a team of 6 staffers and you have to spend that time based on the customer schedule, needs to be considered, and it needs to be for sure having people available that have done this before, so not to be underestimated. Now, talking about the quality certifications, those that are in the automotive industry know that you need an IATF 6949 in order to ship and sell, produce and ship parts. That is not to be underestimated as well. We have decided at this point, of course, we have a functioning quality system in Germany in the headquarters, but it didn't really apply to us as a smaller business with smaller product portfolio and less business processes. So we decided to develop a complete new white, it's called a white paper quality management system here with a local consultant. We copied or we used whatever made sense from Germany, but mostly we started that ourselves, and we achieved the certification in 2016, which was a great success, and it's certified for this location. Many times it's understood, and we also thought it would be easy to piggyback on the certification of the headquarters, but that wasn't the case. It was also a learning curve. However, it taught us to do so, and to do that right, and we learned a whole bunch of it, and we have a stable system now. Last on this, I mentioned the exchange rate volatility. That's something that the CFO of a headquarter needs to predict, but it can be a hurdle, or it can be an accelerator each way. Local labor, finance, and tax laws. We have experienced that. Starting with finance and tax laws, it's very crucial to hire from the very beginning a very good accounting firm that knows manufacturing and knows on how a little operation would work and how it would grow, and also on how the interaction and transactions between the countries speaking the headquarters and the company that is starting out is going to be, and set it up right, so the taxes, etc., are being done correctly, and you don't run into any issues later on. Local labor law is also important. We have under contract an attorney that is very well versed in labor law, as well as we have a service for our payroll transactions that offers a service where we can ask questions when we get into situations, and believe me, you'll get into situations where and that's just let's say out on the floor, some kind of miscommunication, or a complaint that you have to be careful about. Are you opening yourself up to any lawsuits, or are you doing the right thing? It's important to have people on staff that have been here and know the local so much different than compared to, let's say, Germany labor laws, in order not to get yourself into a situation where you're sitting in a courtroom with a lawsuit that can easily impact or damage or even ruin a small company like this. We were lucky so far, nothing dramatic, but we had interesting situations for sure. Also a learning curve. I could tell many stories about that, very interesting. Continuing with other underestimated factors, I would like to talk a little bit about the resources needed to transfer know-how. When you start a new production, it's first the machines come, then you hook it up. Someone needs to know how to hook them up, and eventually you get customer orders. But how do you transfer all this knowledge that has been at the headquarters or in a mother company for decades? There's what I've seen not only with a small company like us here at Hugo Benzing, but also with larger corporations. And I've always worked for satellites of German companies in the US. We're always far away and easily forgotten and low on the priority list. Therefore, it's important to plan it ahead, and also be the squeaking wheel during the startup and afterwards to have enough resources available to you. And when I say resources, I'm speaking about support functions, persons, name the person, what time will be allotted for them to actually support it, how many times will they come here, etc. And do they have the visa? The visa requirements, of course, have been changing in the last few years, and it could be a hurdle for that as well. I'm mentioning here builders versus farmers. I'm saying that because I believe in a startup company, you need the builder type person that is capable and is not afraid of working in an environment that does not have established processes and everything is in order and the resources are there, but be creative and get the job done however it needs to be done, versus the farmer. It could be that you have the greatest, how would I say, the greatest production manager that has been doing it in your headquarters back in Europe for 30 years, but he had never had the situation where all of a sudden there's no processes and nothing is in place, and they can get lost easily. So it's a different type of personality that is needed. There are some people can do both, but everybody has a little bit of both in them. But I would caution that to look at the personality of the persons that you're trying to assign or send for an assignment into this country or into other countries. And therefore, it's also important to understand these cultural differences and being able to adapt to those cultural differences. And there's many studies about expats on how they experience the new environment, and there's a certain graph that I saw once where at the beginning is euphoria and enthusiasm, and then it becomes a frustration, and eventually people would like to just go home, and that doesn't serve the purpose, I would say. Of course, it's very beneficial if you can find people that are here and have that background or both backgrounds, and can be the interface to your headquarters as well as to the local employees, as well as customers and suppliers and the infrastructure. Very important point that I would like to mention is the benefits package. It's so much discussed currently and in the last years here in the US for sure, and it has been discussed a lot in the last few weeks in lieu of the elections, and it will be discussed in the next few years for sure. But it's so different here, and it needs to be understood. It needs to be understood also from the fact that the government is not telling you what you need to offer. Really, you have to understand. We had to understand that we have to offer a competitive package. It's not about what we can pay and we cannot pay. it needs to be competitive, because we need to attract talent and employees, and we need to retain them as well. And if there's a bad insurance package that doesn't suffice that, then you will not be able to retain them for too long. And that gets to the finding the personnel which is qualified and dependable. I specifically put dependable on there because it appears that we have very strong challenges to have personnel in the production area that actually shows up in time and keeps showing up for a long time. That's critical. And therefore, it's important to have someone here or use a service that knows the local recruiting knowledge needed. When I say creativity, I'd like to say think outside the box. We had a real big challenge before COVID already to attract production workers. We ventured out and we targeted retirees for low impact packaging functions, and we were quite successful there. There's someone that wants to come back and has a light light production job. They're very dependable typically, and do a great job, and are happy to get out. We also ventured out into returning citizens. What that is there's programs out there in a correctional facility, meaning prisons, system, where there's education systems out that train different skills, skilled trades, like carpenter, electrician. In our case, we had a CNC machining program here in Michigan, or I went there and I visited that program, and we ended up hiring and recruiting one of the returning citizens, as it's called. He's working here now, and it's working out well. At least we do know what we get into. I wouldn't be, me personally, I'm not afraid of that. You have to be careful that what the offense would be in this case, because if anything happens, you're liable, and you know what offense that was. But that's a whole different story. However, it's interesting and a source that can be tapped into. And of course, minorities is a target group. We're very proud that we have an extreme I would say diverse staff here. We have all kinds of nations, religions, ethnic backgrounds, etc. And I'm steering that on purpose that way, so it's a good mix. It's of course important not to create any groups, etc. Understanding the hiring process is important, including the situation of candidates. What I mean by that is, at the beginning we were recruiting out of Germany, and in Germany you recruit differently. Everybody knows it's typical. We say hire and fire. What I mean by that is we have to understand that someone is coming to an interview. They're taken away from the few days that they have to take off from the current job, if they have a current job. And they are expecting to be hired to get an answer within a couple of days, not to have 2-3 interviews within months and then have a time period of 6 months to quit. That's not the way it works. So it's important to understand that. So I believe this is my last bullet, understanding the local education system. I've seen that many times, that specifically from Germany, for German companies or German colleagues that kind of, I would say, disappointed, shocked about what a skilled workforce capabilities are here, and that needs to be understood on how it works, and how starting from the high school system to a associates or a skilled trade, etc. What does that really mean? What can you expect from that? What can you expect from a resume that shows that one is a superstar? What are the questions to ask to find out what it really is? We had good luck, and we're starting this now. With a apprenticeship program that we have been starting this summer with the MAD2 program. I was approached by the German American Chamber of Commerce to do a little bit of advertising, and it's a local program with the Henry Ford University, and we have one young gentleman, even though we're a small company, but we have one young gentleman that started that in mechatronics. And I have great hopes for him to learn and have a structured education that then we can benefit from once he's done with that. And we will have we have a contractual agreement that he will have to stay with us for a certain time period. So we get actually the benefit of that. And that's based on the German apprenticeship structure, where they go blocks in school and blocks here to work for. We pay a stipend and a salary, etc. So I have great hopes, and I encourage you to also look into that. I think it's a good program. That concludes my presentation, and even after this meeting, etc., you have my contact information. I'll be very happy and willing to share more details if you have specific questions. Well, I hope you had some good information that you were expecting. Any questions I might answer?
I'm sorry, Matthias, thank you so much. That's exactly what this membership network is all about, you know, being able to directly connect with you. I really think that that was amazing. It was actually 25 years of your experience in the industry and here in the United States speaking. Good point. Matthias, we have some questions in here already. And here's how this works is I'm gonna look at the questions in the order that they came in, and then we're just trying to get those people unmuted. I have Christian here, Christian Bock, and Christian has a question. Christian, if you want to ask your question, you're on unmute now. Go ahead for it.
All right, Matthias, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Matthias, can you hear Christian?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful. Hello. I was wondering with the recent election, if you see any direct results for your business or certain aspects of your business or processes, maybe in procurement, workforce, or any expectations you have from this election in the near future?
Well, that's a good question. I wish I had a good answer for that, but the only impact that I can really see or hope for is the steel tariff, the steel tariff to hopefully go away or be less stringent for us. Visa requirements, of course, I'm hoping that as well, that there will be some changes. It had been developing very, how would I say this, concerningly in the last year or two, or even 4. And for example, we have one production manager here that has an E2 visa that's running out now. We need him, and the chances hopefully are getting better to have that know-how transfer and the visa restrictions more friendly to companies like us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matthias.
Is that okay?
Wonderful, yeah. Dankeschön.
As an answer, we've got more questions in here. And I got something in my throat. I'm so sorry about that. We have another question here from Isabella. Isabella, I'm not sure if I can unmute you. If not, let me just ask the question that Isabella has, is what is your projected growth for 2021, Matthias?
You mean in percent? Let's say in 2021, we're going to be, or comparing to the economic situation right now, it's hard to predict, to be honest, but based on what we're producing right now, we're actually producing 20% more than before COVID. I don't expect that to be continuing for the next year, maybe for the next 2 or 3 months. Maybe it's going to flatten out in December. but we're expecting a slight increase next year compared to this year, even though COVID was a big portion of that.
All right, thank you so much, Isabella. I hope that answers your question. We have another one here. Actually, there's two questions from Shashank. Shashank, bear with me if I pronounce that horribly wrong, but I'm sorry about it. Shashank Rao. Shashank, I'm gonna try to unmute you right now. If I can find you in here. I'm sorry, I don't find Shashank. Maybe in the background, Kim, could you have a look at Shashank? Oh, he's here. Shashank, feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, hello. So my question is about internships and full-time opportunities in the company Benzing. I did go to the career website, but there is nothing right now, no roles right now. So I was just wondering if you take international students who can also speak German. If that helps.
We're always we did have internships before in the summer, etc. Depends on what projects we're working on. We're open for that, and that's a good point that you bring up. Isn't it one topic that I actually omitted in the presentation? An extremely important key factor that is being underestimated is IT support. And that's the. I'm sorry if I don't answer your question, but we're not connected to the main server's website. Therefore, we do not show any openings on the Hugo Benzing website, which is why you can't see anything. But if you're interested there, feel free to reach out to me offline.
Right.
Okay,
thank you so much. Awesome, Shashank, thank you. And by the way, what was that pronounced almost correctly?
Yeah, it's almost right. I'm Shashank Rao.
Shashank Rao. Okay, I'm gonna keep that in mind for next time.
Thank you. No problem.
Okay, we're gonna have another question from Verena Schwartz. Verena, we're gonna try to unmute you right now, and then feel free to ask your question. Here it is. It looks like I cannot unmute Verena right now, so let me just ask the question is, Matthias, Verena is asking, what about office services, administration work or whatever, you know, accounting, order processing, marketing, logistics, trade shows. Is that something that you guys need help with?
No, we're good there. We actually have very little. We have actually very little marketing that has been done here locally. We participate in some trade shows that are specific to our industry, but we handle that, as I said, many hats, and we're pretty much set there. Once we grow, which I hope in a very big size, I'm hoping to have a marketing function and also a bigger budget to do so.
Awesome, thank you. Another question came in, and by the way, Verena says thank you, so we're good. Another question that we have here is from Manuel Willmann. Manuel, we're gonna unmute you right now. Feel free to ask your question. Because it might take some time sometimes, but here we go. I don't see him unmuted, but anyway, let me ask the question on behalf of Manuel and Matthias. Manuel's question is, how is the structure of your sales process here in the United States?
Very good question. Untypical from what I've seen in the past for other companies that start with a sales organization. We started with a manufacturing location, but not really, because we have started successfully selling through a sales representative agency in the last 14 years in the US, and that really helped us to put the footprint here. So we worked with a very well-established sales rep agency here in the Detroit metro area, which we're extremely happy with, and it's working out well. They're not doing only what a typical sales rep does; they do program management and quality issues as well. So that's how we started.
Awesome, thank you so much. And Manuel says, perfect, thank you. So, right answer. Any other questions I did not take care of right now? No, I don't see any other questions from the audience. Is there some more questions? Just again, feel free to raise your hand or type your question into the box. There is one. No, not really a question, but Petra Obritzberger says hi. Matthias. So
Hello.
here's another one. Christian. Christian's question is, do you plan any additional locations in the future based on your business growth?
Say that again, please.
Do you plan any additional locations in the future based on your business growth?
Yes, we're planning to expand as soon as we grow out of this building. We're already we're set up to build new buildings if needed. The plan is not defined, but our owner and Mr. Benzing is invested in real estate here in Michigan again. So that could be one way to do it, to expand the footprint, but also it could be an acquisition as well. But there's nothing definite in the plan at this point.
Gotcha, I see. Christian says thanks, and here is another question from Shashank. Shashank, why don't I just and feel free to ask a question. Here we go. Is Shashank? Obviously, he's still on mute. Shashank's question is, how different are the operations in the US and Germany? Which one is easier? What do you think?
Well, you know, we're trying to duplicate the operation from a technical point of view here in the US to what we're doing in Germany. That's due to the fact that we're producing the same products, and we're also using the best practices that were successful in Germany. So we're trying to adhere as much as we can to it, but we also are open to local adjustments in a business process point of view, etc. Some things are being done differently. Many times I see people or companies or organizations fail because I think whatever is done in Germany is the gospel and it can't be done differently. But there's different local requirements that you have to adjust to in order to be successful.
Right. Thank you, Matthias. Another question is coming in from Dorothea Baxter. Let me try to unmute you. Let's see if that works. And then you can ask your question. So you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah. Hi, Matthias, also from Michigan here, not too far from where you are. My question is, did you use the GACC when you entered the US? And if so, what were the benefits of doing so? And also, are you involved in other associations here in Michigan?
Well, thank you for that question, Dorothea. Did you ask the question about GACC membership?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact,
yes,
I have to admit that I'm just recently became a member of the GACC. I was always somehow on the fence, looking inside from outside in. I went to a few events early when I came here as well, but the MAT2 program or the apprenticeship program really got me into becoming a member, and I'm not active at this point at any other associations.
Okay, thank you.
Dorothea, you're welcome. Any other questions from the audience? Doesn't look like it. So here's an update from our end to what's ahead. We're almost at the end of 2020, but there is so many more things to come. Keep in mind, we're going to have 2 more business luncheons in December. One is focused on patent in the automotive industry, and the other one then is focused on the outlook for 2021 in terms of taxes. What to expect in terms of taxes. For those who are interested in the apprenticeship program that Matthias was just referring to, sort of a last minute thing, tomorrow we're going to have a full day conference well, we would be in Michigan, unfortunately we can't, but focused on apprenticeship programs here in the United States, throughout the United States. That's our apprenticeship conference, and we're also going to award the apprenticeship award tomorrow. And another interesting thing for you, if you're based in Michigan, we have a virtual business delegation coming to Michigan in December, and the topic's going to be autonomous driving. So if you're interested in connecting with, German companies that are interested in the US market, join us there. All of that can be found on our website, gaccmidwest.org. You will find the events calendar there. Just have a look and feel free to join. And I'm doing a last check for any other questions. There's none. Well, thank you so much, Matthias. Where are you? I don't see you anymore. Anyway, I'll turn off the camera. Anyway, please, Matthias, thank you so much for making it possible. Also, thank you so much for sharing your contact details. And again, I know that you're serious about whenever companies have questions in terms of, I need information or support. Matthias
Absolutely
is happy to help you there. We get lots of thank yous in there right now, Matthias. I just wanted to let you know that. And to the audience, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again in one of our events, Business Luncheon, Apprenticeship Conference, or delegations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks.